far beyond the noise of crowded taverns and battlefields, beyond the songs of kings and the thunder of armies. There are the long nights beneath the stars of Gondor. This is a land of fading watchfires, of cold stone walls, of tired men wrapped in wool cloaks, while the white mountains breathe frost into the dark. And though the great tales speak often of crowns and wars, most nights in Gondor are smaller than that. Most nights are simply about enduring until dawn. So if you enjoy these slow journeys into forgotten worlds, feel free to like the video, perhaps leave a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight. Now, lower the lanterns a little, settle into your blankets, and let us drift softly into the ancient lands beside the Anduin. The stars above Gondor arrive slowly. First one, then another, until the entire sky unfolds like silver dust scattered across black water. Far below those stars, the lands of Ithilien sleep uneasily. The forests here are beautiful in the moonlight, though beauty in Middle-earth is often tangled with sorrow. Pale birch trees lean above narrow paths. Ferns glisten with dew. Somewhere beyond the eastern hills, unseen rivers whisper through stone, and always, far away, there is the dark glow beyond the mountains, Mordor. Even when hidden from sight, its presence hangs over the land like smoke cut inside old fabric. Tonight, a small company of rangers keeps watch beside the ruined road. Their fire is carefully hidden beneath an overhang of stone where its glow cannot easily be seen from afar. No one speaks loudly here. Voices remain low and soft, almost swallowed by the night itself. One ranger sharpens a knife against a whetstone with slow, patient strokes. Another dries wet boots beside the embers. A third simply watches the stars. His cloak smells faintly of pine smoke and rainwater. He has not slept properly in many days. This is common in Ithilien. Sleep comes lightly near the borders of shadow. The men of Gondor have learned long ago how to rest in fragments, an hour beneath a tree, a moment against cold stone, a few bests beside dying coals. They are descendants of Numenor, or so the songs proudly claim. Yet tonight they look less like kings of old, and more like weary travelers, trying to keep warm. The youngest among them cannot be older than 19. His gloves are patched with rough stitching. Mud stains the hem of his cloak, and though he tries to appear calm beside the older rangers, his eyes still drift nervously toward the eastern darkness every few moments. One of the veterans notices. Without speaking, he hands the younger man a small piece of dried apple. It is not much, but in lands such as these, small kindnesses matter. The young ranger accepts it quietly. Above them, the constellations turn. The ancient people of Gondor know many stories written in the stars. Sailors along the coasts of Belfalas use them to guide their ships through storm and fog. Farmers near Lossarnoch watch them to judge the turning of seasons. And the old scholars in Minas Tirith still preserve fading charts copied from Numenorian scrolls centuries before. But out here in Ithilien, the stars serve another purpose. They remind men that darkness never fully owns the sky. Even now, with Mordor gathering strength beyond the mountains, the heavens remain untouched. Cold, silent, endlessly patient. The captain of the Rangers sits apart from the others. His hair has begun turning gray near the temples. A thin scar crosses one side of his face, pale beneath the moonlight. Tonight, he studies an old map spread across his knees. The parchment is soft with age, corners repaired, ink faded. Roads once maintained by the kings of Gondor now end abruptly in empty wilderness. Villages marked proudly long ago are little more than ruins swallowed by grass. The slow shrinking of kingdoms rarely happens all at once. Usually it fades quietly. One abandoned watchtower, one forgotten road, one family leaving the countryside after another harsh winter. Gondor remembers what it once was. That is part of its sadness. Far to the west, beyond hills and rivers, rises Minas Tirith, the White City. Even from great distances, travelers speak of its beauty with reverence. 7 walls of white stone climbing the mountainside, tall banners stirring in the wind, lanterns glowing high above the plains. But few songs speak of the long roads leading there, the lonely roads, the roads where exhausted soldiers sleep, wrapped in cloaks beneath broken statues of forgotten kings, the roads where horses grow thin from hard travel, the roads where rain seeps through leather boots night after night. A breeze moves through the trees now. The hidden fire crackles softly. One ranger begins humming an old tune under his breath. Not a marching song, not a song for victory. Something older, gentler. A melody remembered from childhood, perhaps. It drifts through the camp like smoke. No one interrupts. In the distance, an owl calls. Then silence returns once more. The young ranger eventually asks the question that has clearly troubled him for hours. Do you think the stars looked the same in the old days? The others glance toward him. One of the veterans smiles faintly. In the days of the kings? The young man nods. The older ranger leans back against a stone. For a while, he says nothing. Then he looks upward. Yes, he says softly. I think they did. The answer settles gently over the camp, because there is comfort in that thought. Empires rise, cities crumble, names are forgotten. But above every age, the stars remain. The men slowly prepare to rest. Blankets are pulled tighter, weapons laid within reach. No armor is removed entirely. Not here. One man takes first watch while the others close their eyes. The fire burns lower, and little by little, the sounds of the forest return. Branches creak softly in the wind. Night insects murmur in hidden grass. Somewhere beyond the trees, water flows endlessly south toward the great sea. The young ranger struggles to sleep at first. His body aches from days of marching. A bruise darkens one shoulder where armor has rubbed raw skin beneath his tunic. Yet exhaustion slowly overtakes fear. He watches the stars through gaps in the branches, and eventually his breathing slows. It is strange, perhaps, that some of the most peaceful moments in Middle-earth happen so close to danger. Yet that is often the nature of weary people. When hardship lasts long enough, even small warmth becomes precious. A dry cloak, a shared apple, a quiet song beneath the trees. The stars continue their slow turning overhead, and somewhere far away, beyond mountains and rivers and sleeping fields, countless other souls lie awake beneath the same sky. Fishermen along the coasts, travelers on empty roads, stable boys within the lower circles of Minas Tirith, old women tending candles in distant villages, all of them living small lives beneath ancient constellations. And perhaps that is what makes Gondor feel so enduring. Not only its towers, not only its kings, but its tired people, The quiet people. The quiet people. Those who keep walking through cold nights while history gathers around them like mist. The hidden fire finally fades into embers. One by one, the rangers drift fully into sleep beneath the stars of Gondor. And above them all, silent and untouched, the heavens continue shining over Middle-earth, as they always have. The night deepens over Ithilien. Hours pass quietly beneath the trees. The watch changes once, then again. Somewhere near midnight, thin clouds drift across the stars, softening the silver light that spills over the land. The ranger, keeping watch, pulls his cloak tighter around his shoulders. Cold settles differently near dawn, not sharp at first, not sudden. It creeps slowly into tired bones and stiff fingers until even holding a spear begins to ache. He rises from his place beside the stones and walks a short distance beyond the sleeping camp. Every step is careful. Dead leaves crack loudly in quiet forests. Ahead, the old road emerges from darkness like the spine of some buried creature. Once it carried merchants from Osgiliath toward the eastern lands. Long ago, banners of Gondor would have flown proudly here. Now weeds grow between broken stones. The statues lining the road have lost their faces. Rain and centuries have worn them smooth. The ranger pauses beside one ruined figure, half swallowed by ivy. Perhaps it once honored a king, perhaps a captain. No one remembers now. That too is part of the sorrow of Gondor. It remembers greatness more clearly than it remembers ordinary lives. The ranger listens. Far away, he hears something moving through the hills. Not marching, not horses, only the distant cry of some creature hidden among the rocks. Still, his hand rests instinctively near the hilt of his sword. Men who survive long in Ithilien learn caution, the way sailors learn tides, without thinking. Above him, the clouds shift again. For a brief moment, the stars return in full, bright, sharp, ancient. The ranger recognizes one constellation immediately, the sickle. Many in Gondor believe it was first named by mariners sailing westward over forgotten seas, long before the founding of Minas Tirith. Children are taught its shape before they can properly read. In some villages, old grandmothers still claim the stars protect travelers from becoming lost. The ranger does not know whether that is true, but he understands why people wish to believe it. A wind moves across the hills, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine resin. And for a moment, standing beside the ruined road, he remembers another night, many years ago. A warmer night. Back then, he had been young enough to sleep deeply. Young enough to believe wars belonged mostly to songs and distant history. He remembers lying in summer grass beside his brother near the riverlands of southern Gondor. They had watched shooting stars streak above the water while their father repaired fishing nets nearby. The world had seemed enormous then, safe. It is strange how memory softens old fears. Even difficult years begin to glow gently when viewed from far enough away. The ranger exhales slowly, then returns toward the camp. The others still sleep beneath heavy cloaks. One man snores quietly. Another curls close to fading embers for warmth. The youngest ranger murmurs something unintelligible in his dreams. Perhaps he dreams of home. Most soldiers do. Not glory, not victory. Home. The captain remains awake. He sits where he had before, map folded neatly beside him. In his hands rests a small wooden cup filled with watered wine. The ranger approaching the fire lowers himself carefully onto a nearby stone. Neither speaks immediately. Among weary travelers, silence often feels more comfortable than conversation. Finally, the captain glances upward. "Clouds coming from the Efelduaf," he says quietly. The ranger nods. "Rain before morning." The captain sighs. No surprise there. Rain is nearly always unwelcome during patrols. Wet bowstrings, heavy cloaks, mud-swallowing boots with every step. Yet the lands of Ithilien remain beautiful because of rain. Its waterfalls, its gardens gone wild, its moss-covered stones glowing silver beneath moonlight. Even now, despite shadow pressing from the east, Ithilien refuses to become barren. Flowers still bloom among ruins. Herbs grow thick beside shattered walls. And in spring, travelers say entire hillsides turn green as emerald cloth. The captain offers the ranger the wooden cup. The wine tastes thin, sour, but warm. That matters enough. Nearby, one of the sleeping men shifts beneath his blanket. His boots remain on. Nearly everyone sleeps fully dressed. There are no true beds here. No feather mattresses, only cloaks spread across hard earth. Even the captains of Gondor sleep roughly on long patrols. Rank matters little when rainwater leaks through camp shelters. The captain studies the darkness beyond the trees. "You know what I miss most?" he asks after a while. The ranger shakes his head. "Fresh bread." The answer earns the faintest smile. Not festivals. Not strong ale. Strong ale would help. The captain's expression softened slightly. But fresh bread first. And for a few moments, they speak quietly about ordinary things. Bakery ovens in Minas Tirith. Warm butter melting over brown loaves. Roasted chestnuts sold in winter markets. Simple memories, the kind people cling to during difficult years. Because wars are endured partly through remembrance. A person who forgets warmth entirely cannot march for long. At last, the clouds swallow the stars almost completely. Fine rain begins drifting through the trees. The rangers groan softly as droplets tap against cloaks and leather. One pulls his blanket over his head. Another mutters something deeply unflattering about eastern weather. The captain merely stands. "Up," he says, gently. No shouting, no harsh orders. Just quiet acceptance. The camp slowly stirs to life. Blankets rolled, weapons checked, cold fingers flexing painfully. Breakfast consists of hard bread, dried meat, and water tasting faintly of smoke from the previous night's fire. No one complains much. Soldiers who complain constantly become exhausting companions, and these men have traveled together long enough to value peace over grumbling. The youngest ranger struggles with stiff straps on his pack. An older man silently helps tighten them. Again, one of those tiny acts that keep difficult journeys bearable. Soon the hidden camp is erased almost entirely. Ash scattered, blankets packed, no obvious signs left behind. Only flattened grass and a lingering scent of smoke remain beneath the rain. Then the rangers begin walking westward once more. Boots scrape softly against wet stone. Mist gathers low between the trees. Ahead lies many more miles of ruined roads, abandoned towers, and silent hills. Yet dawn slowly approaches. And somewhere beyond forests and rivers, beyond the long shadow stretching from Mordor, the first pale light already touches the white walls of Minas Tirith. The stars fade one by one above Gondor, not extinguished, only hidden for a little while, and the weary men beneath them continue onward through the cold morning rain. Let us leave the forests of Ithilien behind now and follow the ancient roads toward the White City itself. Morning in Gondor rarely arrives all at once, especially near the White Mountains. The light begins as a pale silver haze, spreading slowly across distant hills, touching ruined towers first, then empty fields, then finally the worn stones of the great western roads. The rangers walk in silence through the drizzle, their cloaks darken with rain. Water gathers along the edges of leather gloves and drips steadily from bowstrings. Yet the land itself seems to wake gently around them. Bird song returns from hidden branches. Mist curls upward from the grasslands. And somewhere far beyond the rolling countryside, faint and ghostly in the distance, rises Minas Tirith. Even weary men straighten slightly at the sight of it. The White City appears almost unreal in early light, layer upon layer of pale stone climbing the mountainside, tall walls gleaming softly beneath clouds, the great spur of Mondalein rising behind it like the back of some sleeping giant. To travelers approaching after long roads, Minas Tirith often feels less like a city and more like a memory of something grander than ordinary life. The youngest ranger stares openly. Though born in Gondor, he has only seen the city once before as a child. Back then, the seventh circle had seemed impossibly high, the gates impossibly large, and the guards in silver helmets had looked more like statues than men. The captain notices his expression. "She still impresses you?" The young ranger nods. "Aye." The captain glances toward the city. "She impresses everyone." Yet, even from this distance, signs of strain are visible. Farmland nearest the eastern borders lies abandoned. Watch posts stand undermanned, and along portions of the road, broken stone remains unrepaired for years. Gondor endures, but endurance is not the same as strength. As the company continues westward, other travelers slowly begin appearing on the roads. A farmer guiding a cart piled with onions and turnips, two shepherd boys wrapped in rough wool cloaks, an old woman leading a stubborn donkey laden with firewood. Most offer polite nods to the rangers. Some look away nervously. People living near danger often learn not to ask soldiers too many questions. The rain eases near midday. Clouds break apart over the plains. Sunlight spills suddenly across the Pelennor fields, turning wet grass bright as polished emerald. In warmer months, these lands are beautiful. Windmills turning lazily above green farms. Orchards heavy with fruit. Children racing along irrigation channels dug generations ago. Today, the fields feel quieter. Harvest wagons move slowly. Workers glance eastward too often. Rumors travel quickly through Gondor now, too quickly. Stories of growing armies, strange lights beyond the mountains, creatures seen moving at night. Whether true or not hardly matters anymore. Fear itself has become part of daily life. By afternoon, the rangers finally reach the outer districts surrounding Minas Tirith. The roads grow busier. Blacksmiths hammer iron beneath covered stoles. Masons repair damaged walls with patient exhaustion. Children chase one another through muddy streets despite their mothers shouting warnings after them. The smells here are stronger than in Ithilien. Coal smoke, horse sweat, wet stone, fresh bread drifting from crowded bakeries. The captain pauses briefly near one market stall. An elderly baker hands him several small loaves wrapped in cloth. The captain pays quietly, no bargaining. The baker simply nods toward the eastern horizon. a silent understanding passing between tired people. The rangers tear into the bread while walking. Steam rises from the soft centers. For several moments, nobody speaks at all, because hot bread after cold roads can feel nearly sacred. The youngest ranger closes his eyes briefly while eating, perhaps remembering home again, perhaps simply grateful for warmth. They pass beneath the first great gate of Minas Tirith before evening. Tower guards watch from above in polished helms. Soon, the day before dusk terreth, their spears gleam silver in fading sunlight. Travelers funnel steadily through the entrance, while scribes record shipments beside heavy wooden tables. Inside the city, the sounds change. Everything echoes here. Footsteps against stone, voices drifting through narrow streets, the distant ringing of bells from upper circles. Minas Tirith is beautiful, but is also crowded. The city climbs upward in winding levels carved into the mountainside itself. Houses press closely together. Laundry hangs from windows overhead. Water channels run beside stairways worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The rangers move upward slowly through the lower circles. Many citizens barely notice them. Soldiers are common sights in Minas Tirith now. Men carrying shields, messengers racing between levels, wounded troops returning from distant patrols. War has not yet fully arrived, but everyone senses it approaching. Near sunset, the company finally reaches a quiet courtyard where an old fountain trickles beneath white stone arches. Here they stop. Armor loosened, packs lowered heavily. One ranger immediately falls asleep sitting upright against a wall. Another begins carefully oiling his bowstring. The captain disappears briefly into a nearby hall to deliver reports. The youngest ranger remains near the fountain. He washes mud from his hands in cold water while the evening sky deepens overhead. Soon lanterns begin glowing throughout the city. Hundreds of them, golden lights scattered across the mountainside like earthbound stars. Above Minas Tirith, the real stars slowly emerge once more. Clear tonight, bright. The young ranger leans back against the fountain edge and watches them appear. And for the first time in many nights, he feels safe enough to grow truly tired. Not alert, not waiting, only tired. Around him, the city settles into evening rhythms. Distant laughter drifts from taverns. A woman sings softly somewhere beyond the narrow streets. Stable horses stamp against straw. Kitchen workers empty steaming water into gutters below. These ordinary sounds comfort him more than he expected. Because Gondor is not only towers and soldiers, it is cooks baking bread before dawn, stonecutters repairing cracked walls, children sleeping beneath patched blankets while their parents whisper about tomorrow. Entire lives unfolding quietly beneath the shadow of history. The captain eventually returns carrying a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside are fresh apples, a rare luxury after weeks along the road. The men accept them with tired gratitude. One jokes that the captain must have bribed half the city treasury. The captain replies that he merely looked hungry enough. Soft laughter follows. Not loud, not careless, but real. The stars shine brighter now above the white city, and high upon the uppermost level, where the tower of Ecthelion stands against the night sky, the great banner of Gondor stirs gently in the mountain wind. White tree upon black cloth, a kingdom still standing. Though worn, though weary, still standing. The rangers sleep that night within the shelter of stone walls rather than beneath trees. Blankets are warmer here. The floor is less damp. Yet many still wake instinctively at small noises during the dark hours. Years near danger teach the body strange habits. Outside, the stars continue their slow, silent journey over Minas Tirith, watching kings, watching soldiers, watching bakers and stable boys and sleepless old men tending lanterns in high windows, watching all the small, fragile lives gathered beneath the mountains of Gondor. And somewhere beyond those distant eastern hills, beyond rivers and ruined cities and shadowed plains, darkness waits patiently for its hour. But not tonight. Night, the stars still belong to Gondor. Let us drift onward now, away from the crowded circles of Minas Tirith, and into the quieter wilds, where the rangers of Gondor still wander beneath lonely skies. The following evening arrives colder. A northern wind sweeps down from the White Mountains, carrying the scent of snow from distant peaks. Beyond the city walls, the open lands of Anorian stretch beneath fading sunlight in long, rolling waves of grass and stone. Here, the roads grow emptier once more. The noise of Minas Tirith fades behind the rangers as they ride eastward beneath darkening clouds. Their horses move steadily along narrow paths worn by generations of patrols. Hooves strike loose stones. Leather saddles creak softly. Cloaks flutter behind them in the wind like torn banners. The youngest ranger rides near the rear of the company. He is more comfortable in the saddle now. The stiffness of earlier days has faded somewhat, replaced by the dull endurance common to those who travel often. Even exhaustion becomes familiar eventually. Ahead, the captain raises one gloved hand. The company slows. Far below the hillside, smoke rises from a small cluster of cottages near a stream. A shepherd settlement. Simple, remote. Only 6 or 7 homes gathered behind low stone fences. From this distance, the cottages appear almost peaceful enough to belong to another age entirely. Children chase goats between muddy paths. A woman hangs wet blankets beside a chimney. An old shepherd repairs fencing while several dogs circle nearby. The world beyond these hills feels very far away. The captain studies the settlement quietly, then nods. The rangers guide their horses downhill. Villagers notice them quickly. Most pause whatever work they are doing. Not from fear exactly, more from caution. In troubled years, unexpected riders often carry unwelcome news. But when the villagers recognize the silver emblems of Gondor upon the cloaks, shoulders ease slightly. An elderly shepherd approaches first. His beard is white as frost. Hands roughened from decades of winter labor grip a crooked walking stick. "You're late this season," he says. The captain offers a tired smile. The roads have grown longer. The old shepherd snorts softly. They always do. The villagers invite the company to share their evening fire. Not from wealth. These people possess little. But hospitality survives stubbornly in Gondor, especially among those who understand difficult winters. Soon the rangers sit inside a low stone hall, warmed by peat smoke and crowded with the smells of stew, damp wall, and freshly baked oat bread. The youngest ranger nearly falls asleep from the heat alone. After weeks of cold camps and hidden fires, simple shelter feels luxurious. Wooden bowls are passed around. The stew contains onions, barley, carrots, and thin strips of mutton cooked so long they nearly dissolve into broth. Nothing fancy, nothing royal. Yet, every man eats gratefully. Outside, darkness settles over the hills. Rain taps softly against the roof. One of the village children watches the rangers with wide, fascinated eyes. To him, they must seem like figures from old songs. Travelers from distant roads carrying swords and secrets. At last, he gathers enough courage to ask a question. Have you seen Osgiliath? The hall grows slightly quieter. Several adults exchange brief glances. The captain nods, slowly. Aye. The child leans closer. Is it true the stars shine through the broken roofs? For a moment, nobody answers. Then the captain stares thoughtfully into the fire. Yes, he says softly, they do. And suddenly, the ruined city seems to fill the room without anyone speaking its name again. Osgiliath, once the greatest city in Gondor, city of bridges, city of domes, city of kings, now broken stone beside dark waters, empty windows staring upward toward endless skies. Even children know its story. That is the burden of Gondor. Its ruins are famous. Later in the evening, after meals are finished and bowls cleaned, the villagers gather closer to the hearth. One old woman begins spinning wool beside the firelight. A shepherd repairs harness straps. The rain continues steadily outside, and one of the rangers quietly removes a small wooden flute from his pack. The melody he plays is soft enough to nearly disappear beneath the crackling fire. Still, everyone listens. The tune feels ancient, slow, melancholy, like wind moving through abandoned halls. The youngest ranger watches the flames dance across smoke-darkened beams overhead. His eyelids grow heavy. This is not the grand Gondor of legends. Not shining armor, not towering kings. Only tired travelers sharing warmth with shepherds while rain falls over lonely hills. Yet, perhaps this quieter Gondor matters more, because kingdoms survive through ordinary kindness long before they survive through glory. Hours pass gently. Eventually, blankets are spread across the floor for sleeping. The villagers insist the guests take places nearest the hearth. Again, that stubborn hospitality. The young ranger lies awake briefly, listening to the sounds around him. Wind outside, low breathing, a horse shifting within nearby stables. And above the roof, unseen beyond rain clouds, the stars still turning slowly over Middle-earth. He thinks again of the question asked in Ithilien. Did the stars look the same in the old days? Perhaps they did. Perhaps long before Gondor existed, shepherds beneath these same hills once watched the same constellations rise out of unknown kingdoms. Empires feel eternal while they stand, but the stars witness all of them passing. Near midnight, the rain finally stops. Cold moonlight spills through narrow windows. One by one, clouds drift apart overhead. The young ranger rises quietly without waking the others. He steps outside into the chill air. The hills shimmer silver beneath moonlight. Water drips softly from fences and rooftops, and above him spreads a sky so clear it almost hurts to look at. Thousands upon thousands of stars, bright beyond measure. The silence feels enormous. Not empty, peaceful. Far away, wolves howl faintly somewhere in the northern highlands. The sound echoes across the valleys before fading once more. The ranger wraps his cloak tighter and gazes upward. For all the fear growing in the east, for all the wars approaching, nights like this still exist. Quiet nights, cold nights, beautiful nights beneath the stars of Gondor. and perhaps that alone is worth protecting. Behind him, warm firelight glows softly through the Shepherd Hall windows. Ahead stretch dark hills untouched by battle, and above all of it, the heavens shine with ancient indifference. The ranger remains there a long while beneath the stars before finally returning to sleep, because dawn will come again soon, and with it, more roads, more rain, more long wandering through the fading lands of Gondor. But for now, the night remains gentle, and the stars endure. Morning comes softly to the Shepherd Hills, not with trumpets, not with roaring crowds, only pale light spreading across wet grass, while chimney smoke rises into the cold air. The village wakes slowly. Doors creak open. Buckets scrape against stone wells. Somewhere nearby, sheep begin their endless complaining to the dawn. Inside the hall, the remaining embers glow faint red beneath ash. Most of the rangers are already awake. Years on the road have trained them to rise before sunrise, even when shelter is warm and sleep is deep. The youngest ranger sits near the hearth, tightening the straps on his boots. His fingers ache from yesterday's rain. Across from him, one of the older men carefully folds blankets lent by the villagers during the night. Nothing is left carelessly behind. Travelers who rely upon the kindness of strangers learn respect quickly. The old shepherd enters carrying a kettle of steaming tea brewed from mountain herbs. The smell is earthy, sharp, slightly bitter. Yet, the warmth alone feels welcome. Outside, frost glitters faintly across the fields. Winter approaches. Everyone can feel it now. The captain steps beyond the doorway and studies the eastern horizon. Clouds gather there once more, always gathering. Even the weather seems restless in these years. The villagers share a simple breakfast with the company before departure. Fresh oat bread, goat cheese, apples stored carefully from autumn harvests. One child quietly slips an extra piece of bread into the youngest ranger's satchel while pretending nobody notices. He notices, but says nothing, only smiles faintly. Soon, the horses are saddled again. The villagers gather near the road to watch the rangers depart. No grand farewells are exchanged. People living near uncertain borders understand that partings should remain simple. Too much emotion tempts sorrow. The old shepherd raises one weathered hand. "Safe roads," he says. The captain nods, and warm fires. Then the company rides northward into the pale morning. Behind them, the little settlement slowly disappears among the hills. Ahead lies the wilderness once more. The roads here grow rougher. Ancient stone paths crack apart beneath creeping roots. Forgotten watchtowers rise occasionally from distant ridges like broken teeth against the sky. Many were built generations ago when Gondor's borders stretched far stronger than they do now. Back then, these lands bustled with patrols, traders, and signal fires. Now, silence claims much of it. By midday, the rangers enter a stretch of pine forest, where sunlight filters green through thick branches overhead. The air smells of sap and damp bark. Needles soften the sound of passing horses. For long stretches, no one speaks. And strangely enough, silence among companions often feels more intimate than conversation. Each man drifts into his own thoughts. The youngest ranger thinks of the stars from the night before. Another remembers old campaigns fought farther south near the coasts. One older rider simply concentrates on staying awake. Age makes long journeys heavier. At last, the captain slows near a narrow stream cutting through stone. The company dismounts briefly to water the horses. Cold water rushes clear over pale rocks. One ranger kneels to refill canteens while another rubs soreness from his knees. Nearby, the youngest ranger notices faded carvings upon a large stone, half covered in moss. Curious, he brushes away damp leaves. Ancient letters emerge slowly beneath his fingers. Names, dozens of them, weathered nearly smooth by time. The captain walks over quietly. "A memorial," he says. "To whom?" The captain studies the stone. "Men who died defending this road generations ago." The young ranger traces one nearly vanished name with his thumb. No stories remain about these men. No songs, only worn letters beside a forgotten stream. The realization settles heavily upon him. History remembers kings easily, ordinary soldiers much less so. Yet perhaps the land remembers in quieter ways. The forests, the stones, the roads they once guarded. A raven calls from somewhere high in the trees. The company soon mounts again and continues north. As afternoon fades, the weather worsens. Dark clouds swallow the sun. Wind moves sharply through the pines. Snow begins not long after. Only light flakes at first, then thicker. The world grows hushed beneath falling white. Snow changes sound itself. Hooves become muffled. Branches stop creaking. Even voices seem softer. The rangers pull cloaks tighter around themselves. Breath curls pale through the cold air. Ahead, through drifting snow, the outline of an abandoned watchtower finally appears atop a rocky rise. Half ruined, roof partially collapsed, but still sturdy enough to shelter travelers from the storm. The captain points toward it. No one argues. By the time they reach the tower, snow already blankets the ground in thin white layers. The horses are led carefully into the remains of an old stable below. Inside the tower, the air smells of dust, wet stone, and old smoke from countless forgotten fires. Broken stairs wind upward into darkness. A section of the ceiling has fallen long ago, leaving part of the upper chamber open to the sky. Yet compared to the storm outside, it feels welcoming enough. The rangers gather fallen wood and soon coax a fire into life. Orange light flickers against ancient walls. Snow drifts silently through the broken roof above. One man jokes that the tower has improved since his last visit. Another replies that perhaps the snow is covering the worst parts. Tired laughter follows. Again, that quiet humor surviving even here. The youngest ranger settles near the flames while rubbing warmth back into his hands. Outside, wind moans softly through the ruined stones. The tower feels ancient beyond measuring. He wonders how many others once stood watch here. How many cold nights passed beneath these same walls. How many weary soldiers stared upward through the broken ceiling toward winter's stars. As darkness deepens outside, the clouds finally begin thinning. Little by little, gaps appear overhead. And through those gaps, the stars return once more, visible through the shattered roof, cold and brilliant against the black sky. The rangers fall gradually silent while watching them. Even now, after endless roads and sleepless nights, the stars still command attention, perhaps because they feel unchanged, reliable. A reminder that beyond war and ruin, some things continue patiently onward. The captain leans back against the stone wall. For all Gondor has lost, he says quietly, almost to himself, we still have this sky. No one answers. No answer is needed. The fire crackles softly. Snow drifts beyond the broken tower. And high above the fading kingdoms of Middle-earth, the stars continue burning in silence. The fire burns low sometime after midnight. Most of rangers sleep now. Blankets wrapped tightly. Boots resting beside fading embers. The long exhaustion of travel finally heavier than the cold. Only the captain remains awake. He sits near the broken wall of the tower, watching snow drift beyond the ruined stones. The storm has almost fully passed. Above the shattered roof, the stars shine clearer than before. Winter stars, sharp as frost. The kind that seem close enough to touch when the night grows still enough. For many years, the captain has slept beneath those stars, along the coasts near Dol Amroth, in marshes south of Osgiliath, among ruined keeps where ivy climbed through empty windows and owls nested in abandoned halls. He has watched the heavens from more lonely roads than he can properly remember, and somewhere along the way, he stopped fearing silence. Silence became familiar, even comforting. The youngest ranger stirs nearby. For a moment he seems uncertain where he is. Then memory slowly returns. Snow, the tower, the road north. He notices the captain, awake, and quietly rises. The stones are bitterly cold beneath his boots. You should sleep, the captain says softly. The younger man shrugs. Couldn't. The captain nods as though understanding perfectly. Because sleeplessness visits nearly everyone who spends enough years beneath uncertain skies. The young ranger steps closer to the broken opening overlooking the snowy hills. Moonlight spreads silver across the wilderness. Pine forests shimmer pale beneath drifting mist. Far away, frozen rivers reflect faint starlight through the valleys. Middle-earth feels enormous at night, older than memory. The ranger finally speaks. Do you ever think Gondor will become only ruins too? The question lingers quietly between them. The captain does not answer immediately. Outside, wind brushes softly against ancient stone. At last, he exhales. Everything becomes runes, eventually. Not bitter, simply honest. The young ranger lowers his eyes toward the dying fire. But then, what remains? The captain looks upward through the broken ceiling. Stories, he says, and kindness. Again, silence settles, but it feels gentler. Now, the fire cracks softly. Snow slips from distant branches in quiet bursts. And above them, the stars continue shining over kingdoms both living and forgotten. The captain eventually reaches into his pack and removes something wrapped carefully in cloth. An old book, its leather cover faded smooth with age. The younger ranger watches curiously. From Minas Tirith? Aye. The captain opens the book carefully beside the firelight. Inside are poems copied by hand across yellowed pages. Old verses from Gondor. Some about kings, some about rivers, some about ordinary sailors longing for home. The captain turns several pages before stopping. Then he begins reading softly, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly enough for the words to mingle with the wind. The poem speaks of travelers sleeping beside northern roads while stars burn above distant mountains. It speaks of fading kingdoms and winter fires, of weary men who continue walking simply because others still depend upon them. The young ranger listens without moving. Outside, the world remains frozen in moonlight, and for a little while, the ruined tower no longer feels lonely. When the captain finishes reading, neither speaks again for several minutes. Finally, the younger man asks, "Do you think people will remember us?" The captain smiles faintly. "Probably not." The ranger laughs softly at that. Real laughter this time. "Perhaps," the captain continues, "someone will remember that Gondor endured. That seems enough." The fire sinks lower. Eventually, even the youngest ranger grows heavy-eyed once more. Before returning to his blanket, he pauses near the broken opening one final time. The stars above the snowy wilderness seem endless, and strangely, no longer frightening, only distant, patient. The captain remains awake a little longer after the others sleep. Old soldiers often do. He watches the constellations slowly wheel above the tower ruins. The sickle, the archer, the star of Eärendil low upon the horizon. Ancient lights carried unchanged across centuries. He remembers stories told long ago in candlelit halls. Stories of Númenor rising from the sea, of white ships crossing western waters, of kings who believed their greatness would never fade. Now only fragments remain, ruins, songs, half-forgotten names. Yet perhaps that is not failure. Perhaps endurance itself is enough. A kingdom does not survive because stone walls last forever. It survives because tired travelers still share bread beside winter fires, because shepherds offer shelter to strangers, because small lights continue burning against enormous darkness. The captain closes the old book carefully. Outside, the eastern horizon begins showing the faintest hint of pale gray. Dawn approaches again. Another road waits beyond the snow. Another long day beneath uncertain skies. But for this brief moment, the world remains suspended between night and morning. Still, quiet, beautiful. One by one, the stars slowly begin fading above Gondor. Not gone, only hidden by the coming light. The captain watches until the last visible star disappears beyond the brightening sky. Then, at last, he rests, and the ancient lands of Gondor breathe softly beneath the dawn. Far away, Minas Tirith still stands against the mountains. The forests of Ithilien still whisper in the wind. Lonely shepherd fires still glow among northern hills. And somewhere upon forgotten roads, weary travelers continue sleeping beneath the stars. The great tales of Middle-earth will remember kings and battles, but the quiet nights matter too. The cold roads, the shared bread, the fading embers beneath the ruined towers. Because history is not only shaped by heroes, it is carried gently forward by ordinary souls enduring one more winter beneath ancient skies. And above them all, eternal and watchful, the stars of Gondor continue shining through the long dark.